Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Name the dog, Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in paints?
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my immortal friend Frank. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Typical day. Protect the planet from harm until it turns into an egg and hatches a monster. The usual,
The usual. I never really thought about it as an actual egg before, from this thing that we just watched at some point in our past.
Yes.
Frank, before we talk about Marvel's The Eternals, which is kind of a weird thing to say. Marvel's The Eternals.
It's hard to say, right?
The Eternals, before we talk about the newest entry into the MCU film canon, because by the time this episode comes out, i.e., like a mere hours from now, or whenever this episode is coming out, Hawkeye will also drop on Disney Plus. So technically, that would be the newest addition.
That's right.
Into the MCU. But what are you drinking today?
Today, I am drinking. This is a rather relatively local beer to me, from in York, Maine, Southern Maine Brewing Company, or SoMe Brewing Company, and this is their peanut butter whoopie pie.
Ooh,
yeah,
that sounds good.
Oh yeah, it is fantastic. It was peanut butter whoopie pie. It is a stout, and it is. I'm looking for the ABV, but I actually don't see it on here, but it's excellent. I mean, it's a milk stout brewed with natural flavors, 6.3%. And yeah, man, it is outstanding. I really enjoy it. I a couple weeks ago stopped by their brewery and had a couple of beers, and this one really stood out to me, and so I picked up a 4-pack of this one, and it was excellent. So highly recommend this one. I don't think they have much distribution, if any. I think it may only be stuff you can pick up at the brewery, although I could be wrong about that. But if they do have distribution, it's pretty local.
That's cool, though.
Oh,
when
yeah,
there
totally.
Isn't any distribution? That's they mean business.
Yes.
Serious business. And by serious business, I mean they barely mean any business at all, because they're not shipping it out to anything. And they're not shipping it out where I can have some at all. But you know what?
And that's what really matters.
Okay. Sometimes it does matter. Sometimes it doesn't. In this case, it doesn't matter one coinky dink at all. Frank, I am drinking what is quite literally the opposite of a stout, and I am drinking an Omission gluten-free beer. Keeping it light because our content is heavy.
Nice.
Yeah.
And which one is it? Which Omission is it?
This is just the golden lager.
Nice.
Because deities are golden or something.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Because of the golden beams that they were shooting and stuff,
That's exactly the beams.
The beams.
The beams.
That was a very cool aesthetic, actually. I actually really liked that design of the not really beams, but you know what I mean. The gold
filigree.
Filigree, yes.
The gold filigree.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of, let's just jump right into talking about Marvel's The Eternals. You saw it at some point in your past. I saw it at some point in my past, and we're here to talk about it. Let's start off with the costumes right away, because that's you went right with the gold filigree, which is something that we don't get with. I rather dug their celestial-ish outfits.
Yeah.
In the story, they didn't feel like superhero costumes. It wasn't like they were distinctly not like these are tactile military outfits, because we're from outer space. Like they did feel slightly otherworldly, and I enjoyed that. And I enjoyed that about them. And they all had specific filigree designs on them, unique to each of their characters.
They did, yeah. I thought not only their like uniforms, like their matching costumes, but I just thought the wardrobe in the movie did a really good job of communicating a lot about each of the characters.
Yep.
Like that's not normally a thing I noticed, but because they all had sort of different backgrounds, and a different sort of home life, if you will, I really noticed the way that they used that to sort of telegraph like a little bit about each of these characters and what their sort of regular lives were like. So it was cool. I picked up on that, noticed it, and enjoyed it. What did you think about this movie overall?
I like it better on reflection than I did kind of watching it. I didn't think it was bad. It's definitely a different flavor outing for the MCU, which is for my taste a good thing. Like, because while I've enjoyed all of the movies that have come out, that I've watched recently, Black Widow or Shang-Chi or any of these other ones, I'm like, they're all good. And some of them I like. Black Widow I loved, actually, but they're all not the same, but they exist within the same Marvel formula, back to formula. So I... right from the start of this movie, there's an opening scroll, and I was like, "Oh, all right, we're getting big here." Like this is, and I appreciated that about the film, though I don't think it allowed me to truly connect with many of the characters. And so, while I enjoyed its mythological scope, I didn't have an emotional connection to really anybody by the end of the film. Like, I truly don't care if I see most of them again. And that isn't, I think, like, I get told the story that it told, and I said, that's fine. But, like, okay, that's fine. Like, sure. Ajax, whatever. Athena, she was cool, but that was about it. Cersei or Icarus or Kingo or Sprite or Phastos, they were all fine. I think they were like good in the moment, but not truly take home characters. What did you think? This is like not your thing.
It's not my thing. It's not my thing. It was. I kind of suspected it might not be my thing, just based on what little I know about these characters going in. But I didn't love it. It wasn't my favorite. I still think it had more going for it than I still think Thor: The Dark World is my least favorite movie.
Okay, yeah,
I still think that's at the bottom
Iron Man
of my
3,
list.
Iron Man 3 is still the bottom.
Too.
It's still the bottom of the list for me.
Yeah. Iron Man 3 as well. But I that aside, it was definitely ranked at the bottom of the Marvel films for me. There were some. It was very conflicting because I didn't realize that I didn't like it until maybe 3/4 of the way through, halfway through. I was like, I kind of think I don't enjoy this movie.
Wow, that's really funny because I actually found that I did like it about the same time. Like, I flipped on it, where I was really lukewarm on most of it, and then I'll go back. I was really Luke before the Tauntaun. And in this, and then I was lukewarm, like entered the Tauntaun.
Wow! Wow! You just took me on a journey.
I did.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what you come for with Beer with
Geeks.
Fantastic. Allusions to other geeky material.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
Anybody wants to give me that Tauntaun sleeping bag for Christmas? Yeah,
dang,
that's great. So tell me, what turned you away from the film? What made you say, this actually isn't for me? I tried, but no.
What it more was, I think, was I was. It's not what turned me away. It's more what had me hooked from the start, which was the cast. Like, they were actually very compelling, very captivating. Gemma Chan was fantastic and really I really, really was like rooting for her from the start. Like she was just a very, very, I thought she was like a captivating performer. I thought the same, Kumail, Nanjiani,
he's definitely one of the standouts.
Yeah, and like it's kind of a bummer that he wasn't in a Marvel movie I enjoyed more. Like if he was going to be in the MCU, I wish it was a movie I enjoyed more. But he was one of the highlights of the movie, and he was obviously the comedic, the comic relief for throughout a lot of it. But like he just every scene he was in, he stole. I felt like. So, and I'm obviously you and I are both big fans of his, going into it. So, I was excited to see him in it, and I felt like he wasn't in it very much, and then suddenly he was there. He was in it a lot. Yeah, and then he was in it a lot, and I was like, okay, good. Phew. But I did sort of feel like he got that buff for that. Like he didn't really. He could have just been. He could have just been
regular
himself,
sized,
like regular Kumail.
I completely agree. Though he has to look. They're all buff in their own way, or at least toned, and obviously they're spoilers for the Eternals. I think from here on out. So like they're 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 spoiler. They are.
Eternal,
not human, right? They're eternal. They're basically robots, and so like you wouldn't create like
true, they're idealized
robot, they're idealized, humanoid forms,
right?
So
that's how they all look like the most attractive people on Earth,
idealized human forms because they were designed by an intelligent creator,
right?
So, known as a celestial in this case, and I can. So the cast was what hooked you, and then you reached a point where you're like, it's not enough to keep me going.
The plot was the problem. Like at a certain point, it stopped making sense. There were.
I thought it made perfect sense. Like the plot, like I got the plot. Like I didn't think it was overly complicated.
Not that it was complicated. Just that a lot of things seemed sort of implausible, or there were things that like. So Kumail just goes away. Like he just goes away for the last act, even though the whole thing is that they need to be all together because that's what makes it work. But except for him, because reasons. Like that was just sort of like I thought the whole thing is that they all have to be together. That's why Icarus has to be part of it. Like they all have to be part of it. They all have to be there. But except for. He decides to leave, so it's fine. Like that just didn't really, hold together for me super well. Things like that were the things that sort of the twist of like Icarus is on the side of the Celestials was interesting. That wasn't like confusing.
Evil Superman or no?
Evil Superman? Yeah, I mean he's evil Superman. Yeah.
Except he's not really ever Superman. Like he flies and he's strong and he has beams from his eyes, but that's more the power stereotype, but he himself is not a Superman character.
I mean his character he doesn't have the same personality, but
no,
but that's the
really.
Shorthand that they're giving us, right? Like it's the
correct
same. Just sidebar, Superman and Batman exist in this universe.
Yes, I love that. Well, actually, I saw Chloe Zhao do a little interview about that where she said it was the whole object of the film is the myth, like like what creates a myth and blah blah. And I want to get into that later, but like it's important. She thought it was important that regular people have still, like in the modern day, in the story, have modern myth.
Sure.
Even with superheroes running around, which are Marvel, like they're more tangible people with faults and failings and all that stuff. So to do Superman and Batman and stuff like that in here is like what gives them that that still gives the modern myth, the evolution of the myth as we see from some points of the movie to the modern day, which I thought was pretty cool. So going off of that, what I think ended up attracting me to the movie is what I just talked about, where I was pretty bored, like through a good chunk of the film.
Okay.
And I was maybe about half, and I said, I'm just not into any of this. And then I was like, all right, use your English teacher brain, go past Marvel. What does it do? What is the movie trying to do? And I said, okay, it's talking about mythology and like the evolution of, and it's about the evolution of people from hunter-gatherers to shepherds, or like the pasteurization of people, people in the pasture, to urban dwellers, right? And the tracking and the necessity of myths in so I was literally just finished teaching Gilgamesh to school to kids, and then I go see this movie, and there's a character named Gilgamesh, and they're talking about Gilgamesh and Enkidu, and it's Syria and Babylon and Hundred Dwellers. And I'm like, oh my god, like I literally was just talking about this. So it's like in my brain, like watching this movie. So I think that's why I ended up liking it, because I was like, all right, like use what I was just talking about myself, the importance of myths, and like Joseph Campbell talks about why people, like what the purpose of mythology originally was, and it's to not explain like why lightning exists, the way people think it is, but it's to give people, he said, people are not looking for the meaning of life. They're looking for an experience of life they've not had. And that's really what myths are for. And like you boil that down to really what stories are for, to give people an experience of life they don't have, because people focus on what he calls the outer life, which is your daily tasks. Like, like I get up, I go to work, I eat my lunch, I come home, my commute, or maybe not commute from, your office to your living room, whatever you're doing these days. But the inner life is what people are really seeking, right? Like how do I connect with people, or not connect with people? What are innate natural values, and how are those represented within those interactions and stuff like that? And that's really what the movie is talking about. But it's using the Eternals to say like, this is how humanity actually got there, through that stuff. Like, and no, they did not interfere. Their whole thing is fighting the deviants, and I just loved that the deviants kind of look like dinosaurs, and then they kind of look like dragons, and then they kind of look like this mythological beast, and this one, and this one, and this one, and so all of a sudden, like, you see a dragon in China, or you see one in Scotland, and you're like, that's where the idea of these dragons come from, right? There's that like fun little throwaway line where they're like, oh, is that the ebony blade? Excalibur. Arthur always did like you. Like, that's great. They're just woven into, with their golden filigree, woven into the myths of the world, and they are like, those myths are really the monomyth, what Joseph Campbell's talking about, like one myth. We're telling one story over and over again, and Marvel is like literally saying, because of the Eternals, we are telling one story over and over again within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I just thought that was very cool. And once I figured out what that was, the story she was telling, because of that, I sat back and enjoyed the ride way more, because it was so important that these characters are myths. They are literally walking mythological beings, and the whole point of their journey is not to save the world, which, like the outer story, but the inner story is, how do I demythologize myself? How do I act like, what does it mean to actually be of the things that I am supposed to protect, right? They become more human through the course of their journey together, and to be more human really just means more choice for self. What am I looking? Which is why it's important that some characters die, right? Because facing mortality is an important part of the human experience. Going back all the way to the first myth, Gilgamesh facing mortality, Enkidu dies. Gilgamesh is forced to confront his own mortality, and then Gilgamesh also seeks immortality in the story. So it's great that there's a character named Gilgamesh who is immortal, and like blah blah blah. Well, sort of, spoiler.
Yeah, right.
And so it's facing mortality, and that's why it's so important that like Sprite chooses to give up the eternal life. She opts for humanity instead, because immortality is a curse for her, and others like go to free each other from like the kind of like the cast to which they have found themselves because of the Celestials. I enjoyed all of that. That stuff was great to me because I finally kind of put it together. But I like stories like that. That is really interesting to me. That is pretty academic for the Marvel Universe.
It is. It's also not all of that was in the movie. Like some of that was stuff you were able to bring to it.
Well, yes and no. If it's all in the movie, then I'm not interested. So because you've literally explained, that's like people being like,
well, I don't even mean that they explained all that. Obviously, they didn't explain all that in the movie, but not all of that was even subtext of them. Like some of that you had to have prior knowledge. It wasn't presented in the movie. I don't even mean explained, but just like some of that wasn't there.
Expound on that. Why? Like, what wasn't? Like, so what's the line between it like being there and not being there?
Well, knowing the actual story of Gilgamesh, right? Like to actually know to bring that, like to be like, oh, I see what they're doing there. Like that wasn't something that was present in the movie. It's not like there was exposition at the beginning of the movie where they're like talking about like the same way we all know the story of Icarus, right? So when he went to the into the sun at the end of the movie, it was like, oh, I see what they're doing there. Look, like there's, but that's culturally much more well known than like the story of Gilgamesh.
I don't know if that's a fault of the movie, of more of that it might be a fault of the American education.
I wasn't saying it was a fault. I was just saying that you had an added layer of enjoyment from things like that because you had that knowledge.
I think
that's all I meant.
That is part that makes sense, and I can get behind that. And I think that's kind of part and parcel for all Marvel movies, like because like they'll like any allusion they make to anything within a comic book, the comic fan enjoys the material more. And sometimes like I kind of put this on par. Like I think I texted you about this, but we haven't talked about this on the show. So I was going through the importance of being earnest with another class, right? And I definitely talked about you off air. And there's like in Spider-Man 2. There's did I talk about this on the air? I can't even remember.
I don't remember if it was on air or not.
So I'm going to repeat it anyway. So in the importance of in Spider-Man 2, Mary Jane is in The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde, and Peter is struggling with his dual identity. That's the whole point of the movie, that he is Peter Parker and Spider-Man and can't make both work. And so he like finally ditches Spider-Man, one identity, and he goes to see Mary Jane in The Importance of Being Earnest, which is a play all about dual identities and the importance of being earnest, the importance of being truthful, and like literally combining your identities together to create one whole being. That's what the importance of being earnest is. So like the allusion and the subtext to like Mary Jane being in that show applies directly to Peter Parker. Like it's such a perfectly like placed play within the movie. It's so magical, which makes Spider-Man 2 one of, if not best, comic book movies ever. And like you don't get that if you've never seen The Importance of Being Earnest, right? Like if you don't know that's for those who know. And I think that's the same with Gilgamesh here. It's for those who know.
So what I felt like was that while this movie does a fantastic job with things like that, with things that if you know, it adds to your enjoyment of the movie, but if you don't know, it doesn't take away from your enjoyment of the movie. Right? Like you can still enjoy the movie without knowing.
Yes, I think things. You can, but I don't think the movie's great without knowing that. And that was kind of my point where like I only figured it out halfway through, and then I enjoyed the movie.
We're circling the drain on saying the same thing then, because
just from opposite
ends of the exactly. Yeah. Because like it does a lot of those things, but if you do too many of those things, eventually you do the Jenga tower starts to fall down, right? Like if there's too many things that you needed to have outside knowledge or understanding of to appreciate, it's not structurally sound anymore. And I feel like that's a lot of what happened here.
I would actually disagree on that. Not that it's not structurally sound, but it's maybe not the right audience for the story. I think that's what it is. Like listen, I don't go to a Marvel movie to think. Like you just 20 some odd movie. Like I'm sorry, like they're not difficult to figure out. Like they are designed for children to watch and enjoy them, right? And like you can get extra things if you're an adult, but they're not complicated movies. They are they are a 6th grade reading level, at best. And we can read into them all we want, but it's because it lays it out in front of you. This is the first time that they've made a film where it's really not laid out in front of you. And 20 some odd movies later, that's not what people are expecting. And so I applaud them for going outside the formula, for not necessarily the plot formula, but the thematic formula. But a wrong audience, just wrong group.
Sure. Yeah. I can see that. I think that's, I do think that's a big part of it. I do feel like there were some, it tries to answer, or it acts like it's trying to answer big cosmic questions about what does it mean to be human, right? Is on the level of, for the Eternals, right, of them trying to fit in. What does it mean to have freedom, free will, on this literally cosmic level, of does is it fair for all of humanity or all of the galaxy to exist in service of we need to get to critical mass so that a new being can be born and everyone gets sacrificed for that is a big cosmic thing to tackle, and from that very basic thing of what does it mean to be human to that big cosmic quandary, the movie doesn't have a super clear through line between those things. It kind of meanders a bit in trying to do the world building that you need to do to be able to tell that story. And it's, I'm not saying it's easy to balance those things. I think you're dealt a very difficult hand to balance those things of doing enough exposition to where it makes sense, and then also play with the implications of those very big questions. It's difficult to do that, and I don't know that they did the best job of it.
Right, and I mean, on top of those thematic questions, it's also about the needs of the many, right? And the needs of the few,
right?
Because
absolutely.
Do you kill do you kill this being to to save these people, to potentially destroy others, and are you putting the horse before the wagon, and all these different things that they try to answer. And obviously there's no it's all about saving the day at the end of all those questions. It's always about saving whatever you can in front of you first. And that's what they opt to do, which then causes potentially bigger problems later. I've seen some things where because that Celestial talks about okay, I'm going to make my judgment and I'll be back.
Yes.
I'm and someone was like, is your judgment Galactus? Is that what you're leading to? Because Galactus is a cosmic being, so do you screwed up, so I'm going to send the Planet Eater over here now. I'm that would be cool.
Yes.
I'd be down for that.
That'd be cool.
I think part of the issue is that Eternals has a lot of explaining to do. It's a new concept, lots of new characters. I'm not we're not talking 2 or 3 Eternals here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 characters that are supposed to be important that we are getting introduced to at particular moments, and that does not count the extra characters.
Yes,
we haven't even talked about the deviants gaining sentience, and so we have Bill Skarsgård as Crow. You're asking the wrong guy. Crow. I think it's pretty sure it's Crow. But so you have these. So you have these conflicting stories where you have the Eternals basically also gaining sentience, in the idea of consciousness or will, and then you have deviants basically doing the same thing, but from a more of a primordial stance, like the fish coming out of the ocean, and then you have Icarus trying to put it all back to the way it was before, because that's the way it always was. He's almost like that weird, like, conservative, like, you know, like, this is how I've always cut my lawn, and I'll be damned if I get a new lawnmower, like, or whatever. Something more politicized than my version. But
the idea that, this is how we've always done it. Yeah.
And so like, I liked all the big concepts, but I just didn't, it was so big, I just didn't have much of an emotional connection to anybody.
Yeah.
And really, stories only really matter if you care about the characters in them. That's really first and foremost. Like, I don't care how big the story is, you have to care about what the characters are going through. And truthfully, the only character I really cared about was Dane Whitman.
Yes.
Was Kit Harington, and he wasn't in the movie nearly as much as I wanted to. Funny. Because he was the most charismatic. He was intriguing, and you get a bit of his story through the whole thing. And I'm like, more of him by the end. Like, this whole movie to me was worth it because I would like to know more about Dane Whitman.
Wow.
Yeah,
that is a very strong reaction.
I loved him. I mean, I obviously like Kit Harington from Game of Thrones, but like, it was great to see him stretch a different kind of muscles. He's got a great sense of comedic timing. And then we have Mahershala's Ali Blade show up at the end with just his voice.
Yep.
And so I'm like, I would like to know more about all of what is happening here.
Yes.
Because that's also very in my wheelhouse. You're like, okay, magic swords, like myths, like tell me more.
Yeah, sure.
Deep dark family histories, like ancestry curses, like magic. Like, I'm there for all of that. And so
that's right up your alley.
And also, how does that? Yeah, it is. And also, how does that relate to Blade the Vampire
Right.
Hunter?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Right. Like,
yeah. Like, I want to know all of that. So
right. Sure.
Yeah.
So lots of questions that you want answered. Yeah. I mean, I liked Kit Harington, but like, I thought for me Cersei was the character that I was most interested in and rooting for the whole way.
I think that's who you were supposed to really root
think
for
so,
more than anybody. So she was kind of our lens character.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah. So that worked. I really enjoyed Angelina Jolie's Thena, actually.
Yeah,
I thought
same.
that, she was not phoning it in. Like, she really cared. Like, in some ways, she was like caring more than some of the other people around her.
Yeah.
Like, she really went for a lot of it, and I enjoyed that. Pretty much the whole way through. I did think, truthfully, this movie uses a lot of real locations. Yeah. And you can tell. There's not a lot of green screen. There's not a lot of volume in here. And I know that Chloe Zhao fought for real, like, on location shooting. She was very like, no, it's going to be real. It has to be.
Yes.
And so to get the scope and the myth and the like, you really have to be there and not pretend like you're there. And I truly loved that, and I appreciate that. I knew that she said that Man of Steel was one of her templates for making this movie. Now that I say that out loud, can you see that in the film?
I have to think it through, but I think so. I think so. I mean, I don't think it's a one-to-one, but I can see influence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The way some of it's shot, in some of the color palette. Actually, there's the idea of like the myth and like, the grasp for humanity, because that's what a lot of Man of Steel is about. The interplay between man and Superman. So, yeah,
it was fun.
I liked it intellectually, but it's not a movie that I'd be like, can't wait to pop this on again.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever see it again.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Soundtrack actually slaps, though. It's like really good. I didn't notice while watching the movie.
Yeah,
I listened to it afterward.
Okay,
and I said, "Oh no, this is actually good." Like, and it gets lost in the shuffle of the film. But there are a couple of songs like that, kind of the end when they're all like linked together and stuff. There's a great choral pieces. But it's really good, and it's his name I cannot remember. It's the guy who the Game of Thrones, Ramin Djawadi.
That's right. Yes, the Game of Thrones guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and who's also, funnily enough, the Iron Man guy. He did the score to Iron Man.
Really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and it's incredibly forgettable. But
It
I
is.
did not find that. But I did not find that to be the case here.
Interesting.
So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was an okay movie. I thought a lot of I wanted to like it more than I did, but it was fine. It definitely felt like a jumping off point for a lot of a particular corner of the MCU. So I think that's, in the long term, I think it will be sort of forgettable in an okay way, kind of in a Thor the Dark World way, where it's like, but look at all these things it's set up. The movie itself was maybe just so, but it is more of a springboard, and kind of felt designed to be a springboard for
Totally.
a whole.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about Harry Styles. Yeah. We didn't talk about Harry Styles showing up as Star Fox, the brother of Thanos.
Yeah.
They're cutting deep into their cosmic characters now. Like,
seems that way.
And I'm like, I have no emotional attachment to that character at all. But Harry Styles was good in Dunkirk, so great.
Sure.
That's as far as I got. Patton Oswalt was was Pip or whatever his name is. So that was fun too. But yeah, it's just like, yeah, all right, fine. I just miss Captain America.
I know, I do too. I know.
That's kind of where I feel. That's kind of what I felt at the end of this, where I'm like, that's great, everyone. How lovely. I understand that you're mining the depths of like your Marvel characters to introduce new characters, but there's a reason that sometimes these things are actually like not beloved,
right?
Even from the comics, because
that's kind of
like it's not tons to work with. So like you tell like the story you need to tell, and then you're done. Like they're not engaging the way that other characters are. So whatever. Yeah. So. Yeah. So truthfully, I think that after this movie, I think Kevin Feige's going to look at everything and be like,
The formula.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, how about we stop using Man of Steel as a template and go back to using Superman the movie as a template? How about
Yeah. We tried the other Superman, but we need to go back to the first one, please.
We tried it your way. Let's go back to the my way. No, I have nothing against Chloe Zhao. I think that she actually did some very interesting things, and I think she made the movie she wanted to make.
Yeah. I think she made the movie she set out to make.
Yes.
And the movie they hired her for.
Yes,
clearly.
Yes, that's right.
This was what she, I think, had intended along the way, and they were really trusted in that idea. And I just, I appreciate them trying to elevate the MCU to a different plane.
Yeah.
But I think it might be a little too late for that. And I think that's
maybe, or maybe not in the movies. Like maybe that's something you can do as a prestige drama set in the MCU, but I don't know if it works on the big screen necessarily, where people kind of want the blockbuster to happen. Like an exploration of what it means to be human as a prestige drama could be incredible.
Yeah, if that's what you are into. I don't know. I think
that's where that audience is. I feel like that heady, audience that would be interested in those philosophical questions.
Yep, I agree. And this is barely heady. This is not but
imagine how much they could.
That's true. That's true. So I don't know, Frank. Tell people where they can find us and stuff.
So enthusiastic. You can find us at beerwithgeeks.com. You can find us at thoughtbubbleaudio.com. You can support us at patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio for as little as $1 a month, and know that you are helping to make this show and help it happening. Those are not words that go together. And then you can rate and review us anywhere that you're listening to this right now. You can subscribe, obviously, if you haven't already subscribed, if you're listening to this on the web or what have you. And you can contact us at beerwithgeeks@gmail.com or at beerwithgeeks on Twitter.
Well said. Twitter. Yes, indeed, Frank. Yes. All right. Well, that was fun. So until next time. Cheers.
Cheers.